Thank you for joining us. I'm Marni Hughes, and this is Missing here on NewsNation. Each week, we cover a missing persons case from all across the country, no matter their race, religion, background, or circumstances. Every single missing person matters to us and has family and friends and even complete strangers looking for them. And that is where we believe you come in. By watching and sharing these cases, our hope is we can find answers and offer closure. This week's featured case is a little girl just 5 years old, vanishes from a playground in New Jersey. There are brand new tips coming in on this case 5 years after Dulce Alavez disappeared, and new information on a reward, along with an age progression picture of what Dulce may look like now. We'll share all of that with you in a moment. First, though, a few updates on some other cases that we're following in our Missing series. We've got a happy ending for a family in California, and we like to bring these to you each week. 70 years after this little boy was taken. He's now a grown man, Luis Armando Albino, abducted in 1951 from a park in Oakland. Just 6 years old at the time. He was playing with his older brother, kidnapped by a woman who took him to the East Coast and then raised him as her own. The family never gave up in their search. And then finally, after decades, his niece cross-references newspaper clippings with a DNA test. Recently, Luis was reunited with his long-lost brother after all of these years.
It was a very emotional hug. Then they sat down and they talked about that day that he was taken. Well, we never forgot about him. We've always talked about him.
Luis says he didn't know that he was missing. He had been told that he was adopted and is now asking for privacy. His mother sadly passed away without knowing what had happened to her son. His brother passed away after the two were reunited this summer. Police in Florida have shared brand new age progression pictures of Zachary Bernhardt, who disappeared back in 2000. He was 8 years old at the time, and we're hoping for the same kind of outcome that we saw in that case in California with this one. Authorities believe this is what he may look like now at the age of 32. We have followed Zachary's case closely here in our Missing series. This little boy was sleeping in his mom's bed in Clearwater, Florida, when she left to go for a walk and then a swim. When she got back, Zachary was nowhere to be found. It did spark at the time a massive search in Florida and a number of leads. Here on NewsNation, we were the first TV station to share a piece of credible evidence, a photo captured in Mexico of a man who looked strikingly similar to Zachary's age progression photo.
Honestly, my heart dropped. My heart stopped when I saw that picture, and not much has fazed me over the years.
You can't deny there is a resemblance, and it's very intriguing. Whoever this man is, we need to find out who he is.
Clearwater police tell us they have gotten no traction from that photo. We're hoping that changes. Police say this case is still open and active, and they believe someone knows something that can solve it. The family of Kierra Coles in Chicago continues to push for answers in her disappearance.
I want my daughter home.
Kierra was 3 months pregnant when she vanished on October 2nd, 2018, in uniform and on her way to work as a postal worker. Surveillance video capturing her leaving her apartment that day. Her car was later found with her purse and phone inside. Her family marking her birthday each year, including this year, asking for the public's help in finding her.
Yeah, I hope I don't have to come up here and be talking in front of these cameras asking for somebody to please tell me where my daughter is. It's a struggle every day getting up without my child, knowing where she at, is she safe.
Anyone with information on Kierra Coles' disappearance can leave a tip for police at cpdtip.com. You can remain anonymous. Now to this week's featured case, Dulce Alavez, a little girl who vanished from a playground in New Jersey in 2019. It is a case we have covered in our Missing series before. New this week, we've got a picture of what Dulce may look like today, and police are hoping it sparks some new tips in the case that bring Dulce home to her family.
911, where's your emergency? I can't find my daughter.
More than 5 years after Noema Alavez frantically called 911, reporting her 5-year-old daughter, Dulce Maria Alavez, had vanished from a New Jersey park. Dulce is still missing.
Okay, when was the last time you seen her?
We were there at the park, and people said that somebody took her.
It was September 16, 2019. Dulce was with her 3-year-old brother playing near the swings at a public park in Bridgerton, a rural New Jersey city with a large Mexican-American immigrant community about an hour south of Philadelphia. Her mom was sitting in a car about 30 yards away. Dulce never came back.
It's really hard to believe that she's not here with us.
Noema tells NewsNation Dulce had a spunky yet sweet personality, just as her Spanish name suggests.
She likes princesses. She likes to wear dresses. She likes Elsa and Moana.
This year is another one Dulce's family hopes brings answers. 2 days after Dulce disappeared, an Amber Alert went out describing the original theory from witnesses and law enforcement that a suspect lured the 3-foot, 60-pound girl into a red van with a sliding door. New Jersey State Police later releasing a sketch of a possible person of interest, described as a Hispanic male about 5'8", 30 to 35 years old, with acne. To this day, he hasn't been identified. Cumberland County Prosecutor Jennifer Webb McCrae tells NewsNation the investigation remains open and active, and all the theories and possibilities are on the table. But investigators believe Dulce could still be alive.
In the absence of evidence of Dulce's demise, we hold out hope that she's alive.
It's why they and Dulce's family want people to take another look at her photos, the sketch, and even age progression pictures released by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. This year alone, they say they've received 17 tips from places like Nevada, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. The hope that someone will help bring detectives the last puzzle piece they've been looking for.
One element that did not seem to be important could be important and be the piece that breaks this wide open.
One lead that authorities at one point had seemed to rule out, the possible involvement of Dulce's father, Edgar Perez. The FBI saying they've interviewed him, but local law enforcement reportedly reached out again after someone identifying himself as Perez posted this on YouTube in 2021.
I don't know where she is. Don't know who she is with. I don't know if my baby girl is okay.
The man specifically mentioning that he had been deported to Mexico before Dulce disappeared and alluding to suspicion about what he knows.
For those that think that I took my baby girl, let me tell you that I got nothing to do with it.
For now, as Noema and her family mark another year at the park where Dulce went missing, a continued plea for the family to be reunited with that sweet little girl.
I want my daughter home. I just want her to be home with me and my family.
Joining me now is Trent Steele from the Anti-Predator Project to talk more about this case. Mr. Steele, thank you so much for your time. I understand you work and investigate cases involving human trafficking, homicide, missing persons, kidnapping, internet predators, and personal protection. When did you get involved in this case and why?
We got involved in this case a little over a year ago. The family reached out to us. They were a little bit frustrated with, lack of progress. They wanted us to take a look at it, see if there was anything else we could do. So we agreed to look at it and took on the case.
And what have you learned since beginning to investigate this?
So all the years I've been doing this, well over a decade of working missing children cases, one thing that is always true, nobody just vanishes. Somebody always knows something. A little girl doesn't just walk into a park and evaporate into the atmosphere. Somebody in that town knows something, and it's a very small, very tight-knit community. Somebody in that town knows something, and we need that person to come forward and help us out. It's time to do the right thing.
I'm glad you brought that up because we have an interview with the prosecutor, Jennifer Webb McCrae, and she talks about that and the close-knit community and people's hesitancy to come forward. I want to play that for people at home, and then we'll talk about it.
Absolutely.
I know they're doing their job, and the investigation is ongoing, and it's not close until they find out what happened to Dulce. I want my daughter home. I just want her to be home with me and my family.
Anytime a child goes missing in a community, it's a blow to the community. It is a very close-knit community, and part of my job, particularly in the community of folks who are of Mexican descent, is to remind them that there's no fear for coming to law enforcement and telling us about any little piece or incident that may, in hindsight, seem suspicious to them. We're not concerned about their citizenship status. We have the Law Enforcement Trust Directive. We will not ask about that. They can feel comfortable coming forward.
How big of a hurdle is the Hispanic community and the fear of getting involved in a case like this, even if they have a little bit of information that could be helpful?
So we're fighting a very big cultural battle in Bridgerton right now. This is a town that the demographic of the town changed very quickly, very rapidly in a short amount of time. And I think everybody's still trying to figure out how to play well in the same sandbox together to a certain extent. And I think there's more than one component of people being scared to come forward. I think, obviously, I think immigration status for some folks in the community is a concern. Even though I would like to reiterate what Jennifer said, that law enforcement has no interest in anybody's immigration status at all here. This is not a concern. But I also think that given the areas of Mexico some of these folks are from, and some of the, gang graffiti and things like that have popped up in town, I think there's maybe a safety concern for some folks coming forward, fear of reprisal from gangs, cartels. I think that's a real possibility here. And I think that fear of reprisal does not just extend to Bridgerton. I believe that fear of reprisal maybe extends to folks' family that are still living in Mexico as well. So that's also a hurdle that we're trying to overcome. And I would like to reiterate what Jennifer said. We can help. Please come forward. If somebody's concerned about their safety, come forward. We can help. We've got resources all over the country. We can move people to a safe place. But somebody knows what happened to this little girl in that community. There's probably more than one person in that community that knows what happened to this little girl. And it's really time to come forward and do the right thing. It's been long enough.
Yeah, 5 years, a nightmare for this family. When you talk about the doors that you have knocked on, where has it taken you? And do you believe this is a case of human trafficking?
So this is a very complex case, right? It's not every day that a little girl goes to a park and never comes home, right? This is the probably less than 5% of cases that you could probably actually say is a real stranger abduction, right? Now, that being said, I think there's a belief out there, and our team is kind of split on it right now, that there's a good chance that Dulce went with somebody maybe she knew that day. There was no kicking, there was no screaming, there was nobody in the park that recalls a child making a scene. So I think there's a real chance that maybe Dulce went with somebody maybe she didn't know, but maybe she's seen before. So that theory is also in play. I think there's also a chance, you've got the ties to, the biological father in Mexico. That may have something to do with this. There's a lot of different avenues that this could go. Right now, the important thing to focus on is we have nothing to suggest that Dulce is deceased, so we're not going to go down that road until we have to. But right now, I would agree with Ms. McCrae. A lot of different options are on the table. This could very well be a human trafficking case. I can say this: we check her image against images across the dark web every day, every week, and we've never gotten a match. So that's a positive thing. She hasn't popped up on any nefarious places on the dark web or dark net yet. So that's a good thing. But to call this a human trafficking case right now, with what we have, we just can't make that ruling.
It's my understanding, Trent, that there have been a number of new leads and tips that have come in on the case from all over the country recently. Is there anything that you can share and elaborate on where those leads are sending you and your team?
Well, I can confirm we've gotten several new leads. We got a few right before we were just in Bridgerton for the anniversary, and we got a few before we left town. Where those leads are taking us, without compromising the integrity of the investigation, I can't get into that. But I will also reiterate what you stated earlier in the broadcast. We've received tips from, coast to coast, California to New York, Chicago, all the way down to Texas. They've come in from everywhere. And we encourage people to keep talking. And while I'm grateful for the tips that have come in from all over the country, it is my personal belief, my professional belief, that the tip that we need, the tip that we're looking for, still sits right there in Bridgerton, in that community.
So as you're working with the family, how is Dulce's mom doing? And her brother was there that day, too. Is there anything you've been able to glean from him and what he saw?
No. The stories are pretty consistent. Mom was in the car. The two younger children went to the park to play. Mom was in the car. And when she got out of the car to go find them, they were gone, or Dulce was gone. The younger child was still there. His ice cream had been knocked on the ground, and he was crying, but he was nonverbal at that point, so he wasn't able to communicate what he saw, what he heard. But as far as the family and how they're holding up, they're doing about as well as anybody can do under these circumstances, right? This is not a pleasant circumstance. You're talking about 5 years of a little girl being missing under completely unknown circumstances. Nobody knows where this young lady is, what's happening to her, what's happened to her. And that's hard to stomach for the general public, yet alone the family and caretakers of these children. So they're holding up, but they're struggling a little bit, as can be expected.
Understandably. So a red van that day, something that was provided as to possibly being in the area. There was also a sketch released of a person of interest shortly after that. Is that a person that is revealed in that sketch still someone that you and law enforcement are looking into?
Yes, the person in the sketch is somebody we're very interested in speaking with. And if anybody out there watching this has information on somebody that looks like that gentleman, please, you can call it into us. You can call it into Bridgerton PD, but we need to talk to that gentleman. As far as the red van goes, there have been several red vans that have been identified and questioned. I know Bridgerton PD has done a fantastic job of getting out there and locating the vans, several different vans, and then speaking to the owners. As far as we know, the vans have been eliminated, but the gentleman in the sketch, we do need to speak with him.
Is it your belief, Trent, that she is still in the United States, if alive, or is there a chance she's in Mexico or elsewhere?
That's a tough question, given the circumstances that we've got. With that community's ties to Mexico and what's the dynamic of that community, I would say there's probably a higher likelihood than most cases this young lady could be in Mexico. It's a distinct possibility. But it's also just as likely that she's somewhere else here in the United States. It's with these cases, you never know. I'll go back to another case that we worked last year, the Alicia Navarro case. I don't think there was one person that looked at that case, whether it was us, law enforcement, on any level, federal, state, local, that expected that young lady to walk into a police department in Montana. So that case taught me a very valuable lesson of number one, not to give up hope on somebody, but number two, that with these types of cases, the unexpected happens a lot. But if you're asking for a theory, the chances of her being in Mexico in this particular case are probably higher than most.
Yeah, and I'm with you. It's that case, the little girl who turned up 4 years later in Montana, that keeps hope alive for all of us who cover these missing cases and as you investigate them. Trent Steele from the Anti-Predator Project, thank you, sir. It is our pleasure to be a partner with you as we try to bring some closure and some answers to this family. We'll be in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Of course. And here's another look at Dulce Alavez and the age progression photo of what she would look like today. If you have any information that can help investigators in this case, we've got a number of options for you to call the Bridgerton City Police Department. That number is 856-451-0033, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can contact your local FBI office. Next week in our Missing series, a case that came to us from one of you. David Brown is a beloved husband who has been missing since early August. His wife, Amy, reached out to us desperate for help. David was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer this year and was visiting his brother in Florida when he vanished.
The first cam that picked him up showed he had his shoes. Then as it progressed, his shoes and glasses were gone. And then the last ring cam where he actually knocked on somebody's door and talked to this lady. He had no shoes, no glasses, and he stated, "I am lost."
This is an urgent search and we need your help. Join us next week as we take a closer look into David's disappearance, including some possible sightings of him. We also have a special programming note to pass along to you. This month marks 3 years since the launch of our Missing series. This is a mission inspired by Gabby Petito, a case that received national and international attention. We think every missing person case deserves the same coverage that Gabby got. Tune in this Saturday for a special 1-hour Missing on NewsNation, featuring some of our biggest cases that we have covered, 150 and counting, with some incredible outcomes. You heard about the little girl from Arizona who showed up in Montana. We believe each of these cases can be solved with your help. Our Missing 1-hour special this Saturday, 8/9 Eastern on NewsNation. And if you have a missing persons case you think we should be looking into, we want to hear about it. Go to newsnationnow.com and fill out a submission form. You can also check out other missing cases that we continue to follow. Thank you as always for joining us and being our partner. I'm Marni Hughes in Chicago. I will see you back here next week.